Caterpillar PM200 is a cold planing machine, and it's usually used for removing asphalt from old surfacing. So you would normally expect to see it on roadwork sites, but this one here was filmed at the Balmer exhibition in 2013. Depending on configuration, the machine weighs around 30 tonnes and it's quite large with a big conveyor at the front. The model of the PM200 comes in a fairly standard Caterpillar branded box, and there's some features of the model printed on the back. Yes, it's competition time! And the question is, how many ties have been used to secure the model to the base? Is it 1, 3 or 5? Well, as the excitement builds, let's open up the box and take a look and see who's right. The model adds to the suspense by being reluctant to come out, but then we see the answer is... woohoo! There are actually no ties used because this is a different box design by Norscot. And getting the model out is dead easy because you just separate the halves and then you can lift it straight out. There's no assembly to do because the model is complete out of the box. Looking underneath, the metal rotor looks good with its individual cutting tools, and the rubber tracks have got some good detailing with individual pads and bolt head locations. The track frames have some detailing, but the legs would have looked much better if they'd been painted silver to represent smooth pistons. The metal body has got detailing within the castings, but it's obscured a little bit by the thick painting. However, one very nice touch of detailing is the tiny graphics at the rear of the machine. Taking a look around the model, there is some plastic used, with the access ladders being plastic, as are the mirror arrangements at the front. Both the canopy supports and the mirrors attached to them are made of plastic, although the roof is metal. One slightly strange issue on this model is that the mirrors at the front have silvered surfaces, but those on the cab and the lights at the back don't. So they look a little bit plain and unfinished. The control console is also a plastic part, but the instruments are contained within the moulding. The conveyor belts are fabric rather than rubber, and there are reasonable mesh grills on the underside. There's a very simple coloured beacon light at the end, but the metal structure is quite good with bolt head details. And the support cables are also modelled well in fine gauge metal. Time to test the PM200 out on the CranesEtcTV roadworks site, and the rubber crawler tracks do roll on a smooth surface as long as you apply downward pressure onto the model. There are a couple of working features underneath the model, so let's take a look. Firstly, the heavy metal rotor spins very freely. Moving over to the small collecting conveyor, and the fabric belt doesn't move. But it does have one feature, which is that it can raise and lower very slightly. Moving back to the track frames, they do have a pivoting connection, but they cannot steer and the height of the legs is not adjustable. There is another working feature inside the operator's area, and there's a little cover that can go over the operator's console. We'll now move along to the main conveyor at the front of the model to see what it can do, and the first feature is that it can rotate from side to side. The angle's pretty decent and it will stay where you put it. However, one thing you can't do is control the height of the conveyor. And that's because, on the review model at least, the hydraulic rams which control the height just don't seem to function. The lack of a height adjustment does give you a bit of a problem posing the model because the conveyor is not really high enough to go into this high-sided American truck. You can pose the PM200 discharging into the truck, but you just have to cheat a little by resting the conveyor on the edge of the truck. However, there are a couple of other features which work well enough on the conveyor. The fabric belt can be rotated if you like to do that kind of thing. And also the main conveyor is articulated, so you can fold it over in order to reduce the length and make a transport load. And that gives you one of the good display options for this model, which is to pose it on a suitable low loader. However, another thing you might want to do is to pose the PM200 working, and because the cab's open, you could put a little man into the cab seat. However, the seat is quite high, and to be honest, the guys in the CranesEtcTV team don't need any excuse to fall asleep on the job. So a management decision's been taken to apply a little blue tag to the buttocks. But please don't use a brown colour, it just wouldn't look nice. Anyway, the posterior pasting does the trick and the operator looks good sat in his seat. In summary, this is a typically robust Norscot model which is not too delicate. It's got a reasonable level of detailing and some working features, but some more adjustability in the conveyor height and in the tracks would have been good. If you like Caterpillar roadwork equipment, then it's recommended.